repeat it one more time. NFS, network file system. Okay, that is the full form of NFS. By using NFS, we can present storage to Linux and Unix flavored systems. I mean, the servers which are running apart from Windows and Mac. Okay, we can present storage to them using NFS protocol, like Linux, Unix, these servers. Okay, so just like how we have different versions in SMB, same way in NFS also we have different versions, V2, V3, V4, and V4.1. Okay, these are the versions available in NFS protocol. So which version we need to use, that is again based on the your environment and based on your requirement. Okay, so which version you need to use and all. So for example, as I told you, we have a, for example, we are running on RHEL8, Red Hat Linux 8 operating system. One of my server is running on. Now I want to present storage to this particular server, and this particular server supports both V3 and V4, V4.1. So which version we need to use? And both V4 and V4.1 are almost same. There is a little update available in V4.1. Okay, so which version we need to use? As I told you, that is again totally up to you. Based on your requirement, we need to proceed with that. Okay, for example, if you want to implement access control list, just like on Windows, we'll use the permissions, right? We can set the permissions on folder level. Okay, that was available in NFS as well from NFS V4 onwards. Okay, that is not available in V3. Okay, that is not available in V3 and V2 versions. Only it is available in V4 and V4.1. So if you want to set permissions on subfolders of storage presented via NFS, then you must configure it with V4 or V4.1, like that. So based on your requirement, you need to choose. But still, most of the environments, people are still using V3 only. Even in my organization also, still we are using V3 only, because there are few bugs that found in V4, and still it is not that consistent. Okay, that is the reason people are still using V4. Okay, sorry, V3, not V4, V3. So I'll show you how to configure the versions and all. So vserver nfs show. Okay, so this is the command to check NFS is configured on any of our vservers or not. If you see it is showing empty, that means um, NFS is not configured on our vserver. So what we need to do, we need to configure it. So vserver nfs create. On which vserver you are creating? I'm creating it on top of svm1. So access, you need to set it to true. V3 enabled, and if you want to enable V4 also, okay, either you need to enable V4.0 or V4.1. Okay, it is not recommended to enable both. Let me enable V4.1. Like you can enable both the versions on single vserver. While configuring the NFS, you can enable both the versions, or else you can just only enable V3. That's up to you, like which one you want to enable. Okay, so but the default option, it will enable V3. Okay, V4.1 all will be disabled by default if you don't specify anything. Okay, for example, I'm just specifying up to this and hit enter. Then see, v4 v4.1 are disabled by default, because even NetApp also not recommending to use v4 v4.1 now, for now. Maybe in future, yeah, they'll recommend you to use it. Okay. So now if you want to modify, yeah, you can do that. Modify command. By using modify command, you can I want to enable v4.1. Okay, just enable. Okay, so now I have enabled both v4 and v4.1. Okay, I think you can enable both 4.0 and 4.1 as well. That's fine. Okay, this is the way you can configure the NFS on top of a vServer. This is pretty simple and straightforward process. It is very easy when you compare it with CIFS configuration. CIFS configuration is a bit complex. Okay, now what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you how to present a how to present storage via NFS protocol. But in CIFS, presenting the storage is very simple. But when it comes to NFS, it is little complex. Okay, let me explain. So Zubair asked me to create a workflow for everything. So let me show you the workflow first. After that, I'll show you practically. So first, what we need to do, okay, we need to create a volume or queue tree. Okay, or else what we need to do, we need to create an export policy. Create an export policy. Second step is create rule in export policy. Third one is apply the policy to volume or queue tree. Okay, these are the three steps you need to follow. Okay, so create export policy is very simple. Nothing but just we are creating a policy. Okay, just a, it is nothing but a name. Okay, next in this policy, what you need to do, you need to create a rule in this policy. While creating a rule, we need to mention the server IP address. One more thing, on CIFS, we will present storage to a user, right? Active Directory user. But when it comes to NFS, we will present storage to a server. So if you want to access the storage, you need to log into that particular server. Okay, so while creating a rule in NFS export policy, you need to have either IP address or host name if it is added to DNS. Okay, along with that, you need to mention the NFS version, which version you need to use. Okay, and also permissions. Okay, these all the things we need to specify while creating the rule. After creating the policy and creating a rule inside the policy, we need to apply the policy to the volume. That's it. Wall1, let's assume that I have applied the policy to wall1. So immediately, whatever the policy that applied to the volume, right? And as I told you, we have rules inside the policy. So whatever the server IP or host name inside that rule, they'll get access to the volume. Okay, this is the flow. Did you got it? So first you need to create an export policy. After that, you need to create export policy rule inside the export policy and apply the policy to the volume. That's it. Okay. But before that, yeah, let me take a look at it. vServer export hyphen policy show. Okay. So this is the command to check the existing policies on your vServers. So I have not created any policies, but I'm seeing few entries here. Why? Because by default, every vServer will be having a policy called default. Okay. Guys, don't get confused between vserver policy and quota policy. Quota policy is different. Vserver, sorry, export policy is different. Export policy is for NFS. Okay, quota policy is for to set the quotas on top of a queue tree. And the quota policy, you can use only one policy per entire vserver. Per entire vserver, we can only use one policy. You can create many, but at a time you can apply only one policy on top of entire vserver. But when it comes to export policy, you can create as many policies as you want, and you can use them in a single vserver. You can use all the policies in a single vserver, but per volume only one export policy. Okay, per volume only one export policy. Okay, so here whatever I am seeing, these are the default policies which will be created by default during the NFS configuration. Okay, if you see here, I have one default policy on svm1, I have one default policy on svm2. If I create another svm, by default, default policy will be created on top of that svm as well. Okay, now how to check the rules inside the export policy? vserver export policy rule show. Okay, so this is the command to check the rules inside the export policy. I have two policies, one on svm1 and another one on svm2, but those are empty policies. They don't have any rule in them. Okay, they don't have any rule in them. So what we need to do, we need to create a default rule inside the export policy. Okay, default rule, default export policy there by default. And we need, what we need to do, we need to create a default export policy rule inside the default export policy. So while creating this default rule, I need to provide this IP address. Okay, /0. This means, okay, this means allow all. Okay, zero, this will call it as a zero IP. Okay, zero IP means allow all IPs. Okay, all IPs. Okay, and this default export policy will be, okay, applicable to the junction point by default. Junction point, and whatever the rule we are creating here, this will create a read only rule. Okay, read only export policy rule. I told you, right, we can set the permissions as well, like just how we set it on CIFS, like read, write, read only, uh, change, read, full control. Same way we can set the permissions on NFS as well. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a read only rule. That means all IPs will get a read only rule. Okay, read only access through this policy to junction point. Okay, why we are, why we need to create a default policy, why we need to allow all the IPs, why we need to allow all the IPs. Okay, so see, this is my vserver and this is my junction point. So what I told you, junction point is a gateway to the vserver, right? So whatever the volumes you create on top of this vserver, we must mount all of them, all the volumes to the junction point, right? That means either junction point or volume under that junction point, right? So if we don't have access to the junction point, how can we go to volumes, right? For example, I'm living in a society, okay, apartment society, where if I don't have access to the entry point, gate, how can I enter into my society and how can I enter into my apartment, right? The same way here, why we are allowing everyone to the junction point is because if I have access to the junction point, then only I can access the volumes which are mounted to the junction point, right? If I don't have access to the junction point, then how can I access the volumes inside the junction point? That is the reason until junction point. Okay, till junction point we will allow everyone. But how we are allowing? We are allowing them with a restricted access. That means read only access. Why? Because as this default export policy and default export policy rule will be applicable to junction point, right? If I provide read write access, then mm, they'll get a chance to access the junction point configurations, and there are some chances that they may uh, override the junction point configurations, or they can change the junction point configurations. That I don't want. That is the reason I'm going to give everyone read only access till junction point. Okay, after that, if they want access to a particular volume, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a separate policy. I'm going to create a separate rule inside that policy, and I'll apply that policy to the volume. Okay, but till junction point, everyone will use this default export policy only. Once they reach the junction point, based on the different export policies that we create and apply on top of the volumes, they'll get access to each and every volume individually. Okay, but till they reach the junction point, everyone will use the default export policy only. Okay, did you got it, or do you want me to explain it one more time?
No, no, no. I'm good.
Zubair sir. Thank you. So already default export policy is there. So what I'm going to do, I need to create a default export policy rule inside it. So vserver export policy rule create vserver name. I'm creating this rule on svm1. The same way you need to create on every svm if you want to use it for nfs. Okay, policy name default. I'm creating this rule on a policy name called default. So what is the client match? Client match means here we need to specify the IP address. As I told you, in default rule, we'll use the 0 IP. Okay, that means we are allowing everyone. So here read only. RO rule means whom you are providing read only access. So okay, I'm providing access to all IPs, read only access. But here, if you take a look here, we are getting different options here. Any, none, never, KRB5, KRB5I, KRB5P, NTLM, sys. All these are authentication mechanisms. Okay, all these are authentication mechanisms. So what we need to do, we need to pick any of these authentication styles. How we'll do that? How we can decide which one we need to pick? That you need to check with your Linux server team, Linux or Unix server team. You need to check with them, like which authentication style they are preferring, which authentication style they are using. Okay, so based on that, we need to pick the authentication mechanism here. See, this authentication mechanism will enable the communication between your server and our vserver NFS, where we have configured NFS. Okay, so if you don't pick the proper authentication mechanism, then it will not enable the communication between your server and vserver via NFS protocol. So you need to pick a proper one. By default, the default option is sys. Okay, sys is the default option. Most of the Linux and Unix servers will use sys only, sys authentication mechanism only. So most of the people will choose sys only, but few companies are there, they might use other authentication mechanisms like CRB, nothing but Kerberos. Okay, and NTLM is a Windows kind of authentication mechanism which can be used with the Linux NFS protocol as well. None means I don't want to provide access via any authentication mechanism. That means the particular IP, whatever you mention here, they'll not get access to it. Export policy. Okay. Any means if you are not sure about which authentication mechanism they are using, you can put any. Any means it will give access to that server with any authentication mechanism. That means they can connect to our vServer and they'll get access to the storage. If they are using whatever mechanism they are using, it doesn't matter. It will allow all the authentication mechanisms. They can connect to our vServer with any authentication mechanism. So if you are not sure about which authentication mechanism they are using, then go with any, not a problem actually. Okay, but if you are sure, then use that particular one. Okay, so here let me do any. Okay, and next thing is a read write. I told you, right, this is a default rule and I'm going to create only read only default rule. That means I'm not going to give read write access to via any authentication mechanism. So I'm setting just none. That means no one will get read write access via this export policy rule. Okay, the same way super user also I'm setting it to none. RO means read only, RW means read write, super user means kind of a full control, just how you are getting how you are providing CIFS full control, right? The same way super user means a full control. Okay, Next, LOSUID, these all you can ignore them. Yeah, protocol. I told you, right? Do you want to use NFS, NFS3, NFS4, or CIFS? If you specify NFS, then it will take you. It will take both the options. Okay. If you specify NFS3, or if you want to specify NFS4, you can specify it particularly. Okay, and you can use CIFS also, but let's ignore it for now. We'll discuss about that in advanced concepts if possible. Okay, any, if you want to allow all the protocols, then just select any. But here I just want to specify NFS3 specifically. I want to specify NFS3. Okay, because I want to access this storage via NFS3 protocol only. Or as this is a default rule, let me specify any. So it will allow all the protocols. Next one is ANON. ANON means nothing but anonymous user. ANON means anonymous user. Normally, all the users on that server will get access to the storage because I am assigning I'm specifying the IP address, right? IP address or host name. You can specify host name as well here. So whatever the persons who has access to the server, all of them can access the storage. But you don't want to do that. You want to restrict it to a particular user. Only I need to give access to a particular user. Then what you need to do, you need to specify that particular user ID here if you want to do that. Mostly we don't do that. We'll give access to everyone. A server team only will control the access from their end. Okay. From our end, we'll give it to everyone. So 65534 is the number you need to provide if you want to give access to everyone on the server. From there, it is their headache whom they have to give, whom they want, whom they don't want to give. Everything will be taken care by server team only. But from our end, we'll give it to everyone. So in order to do that, we need to provide this number 65534. Even if you don't provide also, it will take that number only by default 65534. Okay. Next thing is, let's leave it. I don't want you to confuse it. Okay. Rule index. Rule index means whenever you create a rule, you need to specify the number. That's it. Rule index is nothing but an identification number to the rule. You can create more than one rule in a export policy. So whenever you are creating a rule, you are just going to give a identification number. Like for example, now I am using rule index 1. If I'm going to create another rule inside the same export policy, I cannot use 1. I have to use a different number. Okay. And ANON 65534. Okay, that's it. vServer export policy rule show. See, I have created a default export policy. Any questions? Let me repeat it one more time. vServer export policy rule create vServer name policy name. Here you need to specify the IP address. As this is a default a rule, I'm specifying all IPs. That means zero IP means all IPs. So I'm giving read-only access with all authentication mechanisms, but I'm not giving read, write, and super user access with any authentication mechanism. I don't want to give. Okay, protocol also I'm allowing all the protocols. Rule which what is the rule number and anonymous. You are giving anonymous or not? And no, I'm not giving anonymous. I'm just open to. I'm giving access to everyone, all the users. Okay, this is the. Now let's create a. This is a default export policy and default export policy rule. Now let's create a volume and let's jump into normal policies. Default will create only one default rule per vServer to provide access till junction point. Okay. Now let me create a another export policy. vServer export policy. Create vServer name. Export policy name, like for example, wall9 underscore policy. Or what I'm going to do, rhel1 underscore rhel2 underscore policy. Okay, this is the policy name I want to use. Okay, nothing. While creating the policy, just we are creating a name. That's it. Nothing. There is no option to specify anything. What you need to do now, I'm going to create a rule inside this policy. So vServer export policy rule create vServer name policy name. I want to create this rule on top of this particular policy rhel1 2 policy. Client match. Here I need to specify my Linux server IPs. I know that my Linux server IPs, but as you don't know what you guys need to do in order to get access to that information, you need to go to lab guide. Okay, just if you go to the third page, you'll get everything right. Here I have two Linux servers, rhel1 and rhel2. Either you can use the name or you can use the IP address, because the name is also already added to the DNS. So you can ping to the IP with the help of name as well. Let me show you that. Ping rhel1. See, it's pinging to 61 IP, see, which is there already. Is 61. Okay, like that. So 192.168.0.61. Okay. If you want to add one more server, just use comma, and you can use mix actually. You can use both the name and IP in a single rule and single export policy. You can do that. One server I'm giving IP address and other server I'm giving name. I'm giving RHL2 name. Okay, yeah, you can do that. Not a problem. A read only rule. I just want to use any authentication mechanism. Read write also. Let's use any authentication mechanism. Not a problem. Super user also. I'm just giving any. Okay. LO, SUID. These you can ignore them. Next, protocol. I just want to allow only through NFS 3 version. Okay. And anonymous, let's give it to everyone 65534 and rule index 1. Why I'm giving 1? Because this is again a different policy. Earlier, whatever the policy I created with rule index 1, that is a default policy, but this is a different policy. Okay, that's why again I have used 1. Okay. Now I have created an export policy and I have created a rule inside export policy. Now, what is the third step? Third step is I need to apply this policy to a volume, right? So what I'm going to do, volume, you can apply it to, let me find a volume with Unix security style. No, I don't have any. Let me create one. Volume create, vServer name, volume name, aggregate name, size 10 GB, hyphen space guarantee none, security style Unix, what else? Yeah, junction path slash wall1. Now I have an option called policy. So here I need to specify the export policy. If you don't specify anything, then default export policy will be applicable. Okay, but if you don't want to use that, you need to specify the policy. Even after create volume creation also, you can do that. You can change the policy, not a problem. Okay, so as I have applied this export policy, whatever the rules inside this export policy and the servers inside export policy will get access to this volume called vol1 according to the rules we set, like a read only, read write, super user, which through which protocol, through which authentication mechanism. Yeah, they'll get access to this volume. Okay, so let me show you now what I'll do. I'll log into one of the Linux server. So the username is root, password is same password. If you don't know, yeah, go there. See, username and password will be there. So, so let me explain you. So whatever I'm doing from now onwards, it is not our job. Our job is to create export policy rule, apply that export policy to the volume. That's it. Our job is done. From there, Unix team or Linux team has to uh, find out the storage that we allocated. So what we need to do, just like how we have provided a CIFS path, right? AFS share path. What is the CIFS share path? Backslash backslash virtual CIFS server name backslash share name, right? This is how the CIFS path looks like. What about the NFS path? NFS path will be like DNS name colon slash colon volume junction path. That means here in our scenario, svm1 colon slash wall1 like that, or svm1 colon slash wall2 like that. This is how the NFS path will be. So we need to provide this path to Linux team. So what they'll do, they'll use this path and they'll access the storage from their end, from Linux. Okay. Any questions so far? After that, I'll show you how to access the storage and all.
No, Naya, it is clear.
Cool. Thank you. Now, let me show you a few Linux commands. So here ls means nothing but list. Normally in Windows, whenever you enter into a folder, by default you'll be able to see the all the objects inside the folder, right? Like all the folders, files inside the folder, because this is a graphical user interface. But in Linux, as this is a command based operating system, whenever you enter into directory, if you want to see the files inside that particular directory means nothing but folder, then you need to run this command ls. Okay, now if you want to just enter into a different directory, what you need to do, you need to run a command called cd. Cd means change directory. Okay, change directory, cd. I'm changing the directory, I'm going from one directory to another directory. So like that, for example, I want to enter into desktop, enter that. Okay, hit enter. See, now I'm in desktop folder. For example, if you want to know which path you are in, for example in Windows, we'll come to know here, right? See, i'm in a folder called LOD, which is in C drive. Like that, we'll come to know the entire path, right, where we are in. But when it comes to Linux, we'll not come to know. It will only display you the directory, which directory you are in. Now if you want to know the path, then you need to run this command called pwd. Pwd means present working directory. If you run this command, so it will show you the full path, okay, where you are in. Okay, this is the path you are in. Now again I want to come back to my previous directory, then cd dot dot. That means what it will do, it will bring you back to one directory back. Okay, cd dot dot. If you want to come two directories back, then space dot dot again. That means it will bring you two folders back, just like this. For example, back button will be there, right? Back, two backs. Now that means I'm in my computer. Same thing here. If you want to come back two steps, then you need to run this command. Okay, like that. Okay. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to a root folder. Slash is the root here in Linux. Slash, that is a root folder. If you do pwd, it will show you root. See, not root actually. It is the root. Slash is the root, forward slash. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a folder here. Normally in Windows, how you just right click, go to new and create a new folder, right? For example, in C drive, select, right click, new folder. Pretty simple. The same way here, you can create a folder with a single command, mkdir wall1. I'm creating a folder called wall1, or I'm creating a folder called mount1. Okay, or let me create it as NetApp1. Okay, whatever the name you want, you can create. Okay, NetApp1. So mkdir means make directory. That means I'm creating a directory. And if you do ls, see, it will show you whatever the folder you created. See, this is the folder which we created now, NetApp1. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to map my storage to this particular directory. So whatever the things I'm going to save in this directory, those will be saved in my storage. Let me explain you that. For example, on NetApp, I have created a volume and I have created a policy called policy1. Let's assume that this is my volume vol1, and I have created a policy called policy1, and I have created a rule in it, rule in this policy. In this rule, I just mentioned my server, which server it has to get access to everything I've mentioned here. Let's assume that this is my server. Okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just create a small folder here, and I'll map this storage to this folder. This server needs access to that storage to get the mapping done. If the server don't have a permission, if server is not part of the rule and policy, then it will not get access to this volume. If it is part of that policy, then only this mapping or mounting, whatever it is, will be completed successfully, or else it will throw an error like access denied or not mountable, something like that. Okay, so once mounting is completed, if you started copying folders and files to this particular folder, those will be not saved locally. Okay, they'll be travel across the LAN, and the files will be stored in the volume here. Okay, files will be stored in the volume here in the backend. Okay, did you got it? Let me show you that. So how to mount it? Mount. I'm going to show you a simple mount command, not the complex one, because there are so many options you can specify while mounting, but we are not Linux admin, right? We are not here to learn Linux. We are here to learn storage. So let's use a simple command to mount. Mount my vserver name colon junction path of my volume. What is the junction path of my vol1? Slash vol1, right? And to which folder I am going to mount. So you need to provide the full path. So whenever you are mounting it, just go to that particular folder, run pwd. So you'll get the full path, right? Just come back out of it. That's it. Okay. Now I have the full path where my directory is. So mount svm1 colon slash wall1 slash netapp. That's it. See, mounted. Once the mounting is completed, if you want to verify, then what is the command? df-h is the command to verify the mount. So if you run this command, see, it is showing my NAS path here. And what is the size of my NAS path? 10 GB, right? I have created a 10 GB volume. That is the reason it is showing 10 GB. And where it is mounted, it will show you everything, all the details here. Okay. Now, if I want to access that storage, what I need to do? I need to go to that particular directory. So cd slash netapp. Okay. Now I'm in this directory. So now whatever I'm going to do, I'm creating another folder called Naveen. Yeah. And I'm going to create a document called test.txt and do ls. See, I'm able to see both the folder and text file that I have created. Okay, this is how you can access the storage and check the storage, like save the data to uh, NAS volume presented via NFS protocol. Okay, this is how they'll use it. Yes, but these all are not our work. This will be taken care by Linux team. Our work is to create export policy, add, configure the rule inside the export policy, apply the policy to the volume, and provide the NFS path to Linux team. That's it. Our job is done. Okay. Any questions? Now let me test it. If this is mounted, the data whatever I'm copying in NetApp one folder, is it copying to the storage in the backend, or is it copying to the locally on this server? So in order to do that, what I'm going to do, I'm going to log into another server, because in while configuring the rule, we have provided access to two servers, right? RHL1 and RHL2. Now I'm going to log into RHL2 and I'll mount the same file system there as well, so that you must see the data there as well. Whatever the folder called Naveen and text document called txt you created on this server, you must see them from that server as well. Okay, so let me do it quickly. Let me go to root directory, dir netapp one. I'm creating, you can create whatever name you want, but I'm creating with the same name. That's it. Okay, mount svm1 colon slash wall1 slash netapp one. Okay, I'm getting access denied. M1 call one only. Maybe DNS is not working or what? Okay. I think DNS name is not working. The server export policy rule modify server name policy name rule, which rule you are modifying? Rule 1 protocol. That's okay. I think we need to provide RHEL2, right? RHEL2 only. RHEL2. Maybe we need to give full FQDN demo.netapp.com something. FQDN, I guess. Let's see. What do I need to provide? Hmm.
here RHL dot we need to give or the end RHL dot demo dot NetApp.
Yeah, maybe, yeah, that might be the reason. Thank you. DNS name wrong, yeah. 2.demo.com. Now let me give it a try. Hmm. Okay, I don't know what is happening. Let me use the IP address. Times in lab, right? IPs are not, better to use, but it should work with the hostname as well. But I am not sure why it is not working. See, maybe DNS issue, some DNS issue. Yeah, it mounted now. But in real time, you can use both. Most of the people will use DNS name only. Okay, but yeah, maybe there is something wrong with the lab. Okay, see, it everything is mounted here. Now, if I enter into that net1 folder, I have used a net1 folder, right? See, and if I do ls, see, I'm able to see Naveen and test.txt. How? Because I have created these things in the NAS, not in the server locally. So if you mount that NAS any Linux server, you'll be able to see this data. Okay, let me touch naveen.txt. I'm creating another folder. Sorry, file. Okay, from server to now I should be able to see it here. See, naveen.txt. I'm able to see it here like that. Okay, any questions?
No, no, we will check in the lab once.
Yeah. Now, after some time, my client came to me and he told me that he don't want access to server 2. So what we need to do? Just we can remove this particular server IP from export policy rule. That's it. So automatically our server 2 will lose access to the NAS. Okay, where we have mounted. So how to do that? We server export policy rule. By using two methods, you can do remove client match. Also, there is an option called remove client match. So which policy I want to remove, which index, rule index. What is the client match? Client match means nothing but IP address, right? You need to provide the IP address. That's it. So now if you check vServer export policy show, vServer export policy rule show. See, now I don't see 62. Now if I try to access, let me come back. See, I'm getting some permission denied. Now if I try to not NetApp net1, see, I'm getting permission denied because I don't have access to the NAS. See, I lost access to that mount point. I'm not able to see it in df-h here. Okay, like that. You can remove access to a particular server by removing that IP address from the export policy rule configuration. Again, if you want to add it, you can. And one more thing, you can use a modify as well. You don't need to use remove client match and all. You can use a modify command as well. But better we have option to remove client match, right? Why we want to modify it? Modify will give you so many options. And whenever you want to add some IP, there is an option called add client match. Okay, so by using this feature, we can add IP address to the existing rule. Okay, 192.168.0.162. Okay, now you'll get access to it automatically. Again, you need to mount it. Specify the correct IP only, right? Oh, 162 I have specified, not 162. It is 62. All these are mounting options, so ignore them. See, I'm able to mount it now again. So let me try to get into it. See, I'm able to access the storage again. Like that, you can add and remove access. We can do, for example, my requirement is, so you can add the IP and remove the IP to the existing rule if both server wants same level of access. That means, for example, my 61 and 62, both of them require read write access. What if I need read write access to 61 and read only access to 62? What if you have that kind of requirement? In that kind of scenario, you cannot add uh, yeah, to the single rule, right? Because in the rule already I have specified that I need the read write access. Read write access also I allowed, super user allowed, everything is allowed. Then how can you specify, how can you give 62 to read only address? In order to do that, what you need to do, you need to create another rule in the same export policy. Vserver export policy rule, let me show you first rules. Read write, read only, all the access. But in order to provide read only access to 62, I need to create another rule. Vserver export policy rule, create vserver name. What is the policy? Same policy, 192.168.0.62. Any, and RW I don't want to give, so none. But super user you must provide. Without super user, uh, we will be not able to mount that yeah, storage on Linux server. ANON 65534 protocol NFS 3 rule index. I need to give 2 because already rule 1 is there. I cannot use the same number. I need to use another number, rule 2. If you use 1, what it will do, it will change the existing rule number and it will add it as a 1, and it will change the existing number to some other number. But what is the point in using the same number, right? You better to use different number. Okay, now vserver export policy rule show vserver name. Let me check. See, I have now 2 rules, and if you want to take a look at it in detail, then add instance command. See, now This 61 server has access read write read only access, but 62 server has only read only access. Now let's give it a try. Let's go to 62 server, and I have access to it. I'm able to see the content still. See, let me go back and let me come back again. I have access to it. Hmm. See, I have access to it. I'm able to see the content. But when I try to create something, see, it is showing read-only file system. That means I have only read-only access to this server, has read-only access to that particular NAS. Why? Because while creating a rule, I have specified it. Just allow read-only. Okay. And if you do a dff and h also, here also I think it should show. Not showing, but yeah. Any questions? Now you understand, right? When we need to add the IP address to the same rule, when you need to create a new rule, these kind of things, right? It is not like that you need to add it to the same rule. If they require read write access, you can create a separate rule for that also, but not required, right? If you want same kind of permissions to both the servers, add them to the same rule. What is the point in creating new rule again? Not required, not necessary. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay. Next, sorry. Yeah, let's verify remaining options. Export policy rule. What all the other options we have in export policy rule? After that, we'll go through the options in export policy. Add client match, nothing but adding the IP address to the existing rule, creating the new rule. Delete means deleting the entire rule. I'll show you that. Yeah, let me show it on second rule. Yeah, nothing. Delete vserver name, policy name. Now you need to specify the rule index. Which rule you want to delete? Do you want to delete rule 1 or rule 2? I want to delete rule 2. That's it. Okay. Now if you run export policy rule show command again, see, I'm not able to see the rule 2. That means server 2 will lose access to own point. See, I'm in net, and but see, I'm not able to net 1, but I'm not able to see any data, permission denied, and I'm not able to see the mount as well. See, NAS is not mounted to my local folder like that. Next thing is export policy rule. Sorry, rule delete is done. Modify already shown you, and remove means you can remove the IP address from the existing export policy rule. Set index. If you want to change the index of the existing rule, for example, rule set index, vserver name, policy name. My existing rule index is 1. Now I want to change it to 2 or some other number. You can use this command. Not required actually. I'll show you rule index also will play very crucial role. The number it is just not a number. It has some very powerful role in export policy. I'll tell you little later, maybe tomorrow. Okay. Next thing is show command. You know already. We are running it from quite a while. See, now my rule index changed to 2. Okay. Any questions on the rules? Creating a rule, playing with the rule, and yeah, allocating storage via NFS protocol. Okay. Shall we continue or shall we stop?
If you have like any small topic, you may continue. Like,
No. We do have still NFS is left. NFS is not
Oh,
yet.
yeah. Okay. Okay, then we'll have the discussion tomorrow then.
Yeah. NFS is not yet completed. We
Okay.
still need to discuss plenty of things.
Yeah, okay, nice.
Okay. Chalo. Then stop it for today. Let's practice it. Okay.
Yes,
Practice all the topics. Yeah. Same day so that you'll not get confused. Like, yeah.